Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be Zeyde Story Corner. That's right, Zeyde Story Corner. Okay, so you were off for a while. Yeah, we have been off for a little bit of time. Yeah, we had a little bit of health issues during Passover, and then I had the cataract surgery. Thank you, and which went very well, and we are now back. So let's see who we have in the chat room. We have Donald, and we have Kathy Ponder, of all people. What do you know of that? Yeah. I don't know. Is Lance with you? Maybe. Maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, so, and two. Yeah, two. So let's see. Yeah, I got a couple of watching in the background and not in the chat room. So, but we know you're there. Good to have you all here this evening on our triumphant return, as it were. So anyway, we are going to continue on with our stories from the book of Jewish fairy tales, which is a long time ago. Yeah, we actually read this book quite a while ago, a number of years ago. And since we were, Richard has joined us. Good to see you, Richard. And since it's been such a long time, we thought, and we had already run through our last book. I don't know, how many books have we gone through? A couple of dozen. Yeah, it seems like a couple of dozen books that we've read through. But we're kind of coming back, and we're going to reprise some of the older ones that we read. And so tonight we have the Fairy Princess of Ergot, which is a very, very interesting story. And shall we get on with it? Yeah, I think we should probably get on with it. And let me go ahead, and we'll put you on your camera. And there I am. Okay, it's good to be back on the air, on the camera, and all that. So anyway, let us get on with our story tonight. Again, the story is the Fairy Princess of Ergetz. And this is from the Jewish fairy tales and legends. So I hope you all enjoy this as much as I enjoy telling it. It is a wonderful story. Okay, so we shall begin. I don't know, maybe you don't mind if I kind of put my 2 cents in here and there, but we will see. Okay. In a great and beautiful city that stood by the sea, an old man, what are you looking at? Nothing. An old man lay dying. Mar Salmon. Mar. That means bitter, doesn't it? Yeah, that's actually what it does mean. It does mean bitter. So bitter Salmon, or Mar Salmon, was his name, and he was the richest man in the land. Propped up with pillows on a richly decorated bed in a luxurious chamber, he gazed with tears in his eyes through the open window at the setting sun. Like a ball of fire, it sank lower and lower until it almost seemed to rest on the tranquil waters beyond the harbor. Suddenly, Mar Salmon arose himself. "Where is my son, Mar Salmon?" he asked in a feeble voice. That wasn't so feeble, was it? No, it wasn't. It wasn't very feeble at all. So you want to try that again? Yeah, let me try that again. "Where is my son?" That sounds a little more feeble. Yes, it does sound much more feeble. Okay, so you want to continue on? You well, of course I do. Where is my son, Bar Solomon? He asked in a feeble voice, and his hand crept trembling along the silken coverlet of the bed as if in search of something. I am here, my father, replied his son, who was standing by the side of his bed. His eyes were moist with tears, but his voice was steady. My son, said the old man slowly and with some difficulty, I am about to leave this world. My soul will take flight from this frail body when the sun has sunk below the horizon. I have lived long and have amassed great wealth, which will soon be thine. Use it well, as I have taught thee, for thou, my son, art a man of learning, as befits our noble Jewish faith. One thing I must ask thee to promise me. I will, my father, returned Bar Solomon, sobbing. Nay, weep not, my son, said the old man. My day is ended. My life has not been ill spent. I would spare thee the pain that was mine in my early days when, as a merchant, I gained my fortune. The sea out there that will soon swallow up the sun is calm now. But beware of it, my son, for it is treacherous. Promise me, nay, swear to me, that never wilt thou cross it to foreign lands. Bar Solomon placed his hand on those of his father. Solemnly I swear, he said in a broken voice, to do thy wish, never journey on the sea, but to remain here in this my native land. 'Tis a vow before thee, my father. 'Tis an oath before heaven, said the old man. Guard it, keep it, and heaven will bless thee. Remember, see, the sun is sinking. Bar Solomon fell back on his pillows and spoke no more. Bar Solomon stood gazing out the window until the sun had disappeared, and then, silently sobbing, he left the chamber of death. The whole city wept when the sad news was made known, for Bar Solomon was a man of great charity, and almost all the inhabitants followed the remains to the grave. Oh, I see Marshall has joined us. Good to have you, Marshall. Let's see, where are we left? Oh, yeah, then Bar Solomon, his son, took his father's place in honor in the city, and him too, the poor, the needy, found a friend whose purse was ever open, and those whose counsel was ever wisdom. Thus the years passed away. One day there arrived in the harbor of the city a strange ship from a distant land. Its captain spoke a tongue unknown, and Bar Solomon, being a man of profound knowledge, was sent for. He alone in the city could understand the language of the captain. To his astonishment, he learned that the cargo of the vessel was for Mar Salmon, his father. I am the son of Mar Salmon, he said. My father is dead, and all his possessions he left to me. Then, verily art thou the most fortunate mortal, and the richest on earth, answered the captain. My good ship is filled with a vast store of jewels, precious stones, and other treasures. And know you, O most favored son of Marsalom, this cargo is but a small portion of the wealth that is thine in a land across the sea. Ah, the Platicans. Oh, okay. 'Tis strange, said Barsalmon in surprise. My father said naught of this to me. I knew that in his younger days he had traded with distant lands, but nothing did he ever say of possessions there. And, moreover, he warned me never to leave this shore. The captain looked perplexed. I understand not, he said. I am but performing thy father's bidding. He was thy father's servant, and long years did he wait for Marsalom's return to claim his riches. On his deathbed he bade me vow that I would seek his master or his son, and this I have done. He produced documents, and there could be no doubt that the vast wealth mentioned in them belonged now to Bar Solomon. Thou art now my master, said the captain, and must return with me to the land across the sea to claim thy inheritance. In another year it will be too late. For the laws of the country it will be forfeit. I cannot return with thee, said Barsalmon. I have a vow before heaven never to voyage on the sea. The captain laughed. In very truth I understand thee not, as my father understood not thine, he replied. My father was wont to say that Marsalmon was strange and peradventure not possessed of all his senses, to neglect his store of wealth and treasure. With an angry gesture, Barsalmon stopped the captain, but he was sorely troubled. He recalled now that his father had often spoke mysteriously of foreign lands, and he wondered indeed whether Marsalmon could have been in his proper senses not to have breathed a word of these riches abroad. For days he discussed the matter with the captain, who, at last, persuaded him to make the journey. Fear not thy vow, said the captain. Thy worthy father must, of a truth, have been bereft of reason in failing to tell thee of his full estate, and an oath to a man of mind unsound is not bidding. That is the law in our land. So, it is here, returned Barsalmon, and with this remark, his last scruple vanished. He bade a tender farewell to his wife, his children, and his friends, and set sail on the strange ship to the land beyond the sea. For 3 days all went well, but on the 4th the ship was becalmed, and the sails flapped lazily against the masts. The sailors had nothing to do but lie on the deck and wait for a breeze, and Bar Solomon took advantage of the occasion to treat them to a feast. Suddenly, in the middle of the feasting, they felt the ship begin to move. There was no wind, but the vessel sped along very swiftly. The captain himself rushed to the helm. To his alarm, he found the vessel beyond his control. "The ship is bewitched," he exclaimed. "There is no wind and no current, and yet we are being borne along as if drawn before a storm. We shall be lost." Panic seized the sailors, and Bar Solomon was unable to pacify them. "Someone on board has brought us ill luck," said the boatswain, looking pointedly at Bar Solomon. "We shall have to heave him overboard." His comrades assisted and rushed towards Bar Solomon. Just at that moment, however, the lookout in the bow cried excitedly, "Land ahead!" The ship refused to answer the helm and grounded on the sandbank. She shivered from stem to stern, but did not break up. No rocks were visible. Only a desolate tract of desert land was to be seen, with here and there a solitary tree. "We seem to have sustained no damage," said the captain, when he had recovered from his first astonishment. "But how are we going to get afloat again? I do not know. This land is quite strange to me." He could not find it marked on any of his charts or maps, and the sailors stood looking gloomily at the mysterious shore. "Had we not better explore the land?" said Bar Solomon. "No, no," exclaimed the boatswain excitedly. "See, no breakers strike on the shore. This is not a human land. This is a domain of demons. We are lost unless we cast overboard the one who brought us this ill luck." Said Bar Solomon, "I will land, and I will give 50 silver crowns to all who land with me." Not one of the sailors moved. However, even when he offered 50 golden crowns, and at last Bar Solomon said that he would land alone, although the captain strongly urged him not to do so. Bar Solomon sprang lightly to the shore, and as he did, the ship shook violently. "What did I tell you?" shouted the boatswain. "Bar Solomon is the one who has brought us this misfortune. Now we shall refloat the ship." But it still remained firmly fixed in the sand. Bar Solomon walked toward a tree and climbed it. In a few moments he returned, holding a twig in his hand. "The land stretches away for miles, just as you see it here," he called to the captain. "There is no sign of man or habitation." He prepared to board the vessel again, but the sailors would not allow him. The boatswain stood in the bow and threatened him with a sword. Bar Solomon raised the twig to ward off the blow and struck the ship, which shivered from stern to stern again. Shouldn't it be stem to stern? Yeah, I think it probably was. It was just a misprint. Yeah, that would make more sense, wouldn't it? Yeah, it actually would, yeah. Is not this proof that the vessel is bewitched? Cried the sailors. And when the captain sternly bade them return, remember that Bar Solomon was their master, they threatened him too. Bar Solomon, amused at the fears of the men, again struck the vessel with the twig. Once more it trembled. A third time he raised the twig. If the ship is bewitched, he said, something will happen after the third blow. Swish sounded the branch through the air, and the third blow fell on the vessel's bow. Something did happen. The ship almost leaped from the sand, and before Bar Solomon could realize what had happened, it was speeding swiftly away. Come back, he screamed, and he could see the captain struggling with the helm. But the vessel refused to answer, and Bar Solomon saw it grow smaller and smaller and finally disappear. He was alone on an uninhabited desert land. What a wretched plight for the richest man in the world, he said to himself. And the next moment he realized that he was in danger indeed. A terrible roar made him look around. To his horror, he saw a lion. I don't think that's so frightening. No, you wouldn't think it was frightening, would you? I don't know. Most of us are pretty friendly, I guess. Okay, if you say so. Anyway, to his horror, he saw a lion making toward him. Quick as a flash, Bar Solomon ran to the tree and hastily scrambled into the branches. The lion dashed itself furiously against the trunk of the tree, but for the present, Bar Solomon was safe. Night, however, was coming on, and the lion squatted at the foot of the tree, evidently intending to wait for him. All night the lion remained, roaring at intervals. Why, we kind of do that. You know that? Do you? Well, why would you do that? Well, actually, you know how you snore at night? I don't snore. Yes, you do. You do snore. Anyway, we lions do the same thing, except when we snore, it sounds like we are roaring. So there you go. That's what it was. Okay, if you say so. So anyway, all night long the lion remained, roaring at intervals. Bar Solomon clung to one of the upper branches, afraid to sleep lest he should fall off and be devoured. When morning broke, a new danger threatened him. A huge eagle flew around the tree and darted at him with its cruel beak. Then the great bird settled on the thickest branch, and Bar Solomon moved stealthily forward with a knife which he drew from his belt. He crept behind the bird, but as he approached, it spread its big wings, and Bar Solomon, to prevent himself from being swept from the tree, dropped the knife and clutched at the bird's feathers. Immediately, to his dismay, the bird rose from the tree. Bar Solomon clung to its back with all his might. Higher and higher soared the eagle until the trees below looked like mere dots on the land. Swiftly flew the eagle over miles and miles of desert until Bar Solomon began to feel giddy. He was faint with hunger and feared that he would not be able to retain his hold. All day long the bird flew without resting across island and sea. No houses, no ships, no human beings could be seen. Toward night, however, Bar Salmon, in his great joy, beheld the lights of a city surrounded by trees, and as the eagle came near, he made a bold dive to the earth. Headlong he plunged downward. He seemed to be hours of falling. At last he struck a tree. Boing! The branches broke beneath his weight and force of his falling body, and he continued to plunge downward. The branches tore his clothes to shreds and bruised his body, but they broke his terrible fall. And when at last he reached the ground, he was not much hurt. Okay. Chapter 2. Bar Salmon found himself on the outskirts of the city, and cautiously he crept forward. To his intense relief, he saw that the first building was a synagogue. The door, however, was locked. Weary, sore, and weak with long fasting, Bar Salmon sank down on the steps and sobbed like a child. Something touched him on the arm. He looked up. By the light of the moon, he saw a boy standing before him. Such a queer boy he was, too. He had cloven feet, and his coat, if it was a coat, seemed to be made in the shape of wings. Ivri Anochi, said Bar Salmon, I am a Hebrew. So am I, said the boy. Follow me. He walked in front with a strange hobble. And when they reached a house at the back of the synagogue, he leapt from the ground, spread his coat wings as he did so to the window about 20 feet from the ground. The next moment he opened the door. And Bar Salmon, to his surprise, saw that the boy had jumped straight through the window down to the door, which he had unfastened from the inside. The boy motioned for him to enter the room. He did so. An aged man who he saw was a rabbi rose to greet him. Peace be to you, said the rabbi, and pointed to a seat. He clapped his hands, and immediately a table with food appeared before Bar Salmon. The latter was far too hungry to ask questions just then, and the rabbi was silent too while he ate. When he had finished, the rabbi clapped his hands, and the table vanished. Now, tell me your story, said the rabbi. Bar Salmon did so. Alas, I am an unhappy man, he concluded. I have been punished for breaking my vow. Help me to return to my home. I will reward thee well, and will atone for my sin. Thy story is indeed sad, said the rabbi gravely, but thou knowest not the full extent of thy unfortunate plight. Thou art aware what land it is unto which thou hast been cast? No, said Bar Solomon, becoming afraid again. No, then, said the rabbi, thou art not in the land of human beings. Thou hast fallen into Ergetz, the land of demons, of jinns, and of fairies. But art thou not a Jew? Asked Bar Solomon in astonishment. Truly, replied the rabbi, even in this realm we have all manner of religions, just as you mortals have. What will happen to me? Asked Bar Solomon in a whisper. I do not know, replied the rabbi. Few mortals come here, and mostly I fear they are put to death. The demons love them not. Woe, woe is me, cried Bar Solomon. I am undone. Weep not, said the rabbi. I, as a Jew, love not death by violence and torture, and will endeavor to save thee. I thank thee, cried Bar Solomon. Let thy thanks wait, said the rabbi kindly. There is human blood in my veins. My great-grandfather was a mortal who fell into this land and was not put to death. Being of mortal descent, I have been made rabbi. Perhaps thou wilt find favor here and be permitted to live and settle in this land. And there, we are going to take out a break now. Give everybody a chance to get a drink or whatever. Okay, so we will return to see what happens to Bar Solomon and the land of the demons right after the break. So everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as we promised. Okay, let's find out what's going on with Bar Salmon and the land of the demons, shall we? Okay, so I back up a couple of sentences here. Okay. Being of mortal descent, I have been made rabbi. Perhaps thou wilt find favor here and be permitted to live and settle in this land. But I desire to return home, said Bar Salmon. The rabbi shook his head. Thou must sleep now, he said. He passed his hands over Bar Salmon's eyes, and he fell into a profound slumber. When he awoke, it was daylight, and the boy stood by his couch. He made a sign to Bar Salmon to follow, and through an underground passage he conducted him into the synagogue and placed him near the rabbi. Thy presence has become known, whispered the rabbi. And even as he spoke, a great noise was heard. It was like the wild chattering of many high-pitched voices. Through all the windows and the doors, a strange crowd poured into the synagogue. There were demons of all shapes and sizes. Some had big bodies with tiny heads, others huge heads and quaint little bodies. Some had great staring eyes, Others had long, wide mouths, and many had only one leg. Huh. They didn't have a leg to stand on. What do you know? Anyway, they surrounded Bar Solomon with threatening gestures and noises. The rabbi ascended the pulpit. "Silence," he commanded, and immediately the noise ceased. "Ye who thirst for mortal blood, desecrate not this holy building wherein I am master. What ye have to say must wait until after the morning service." Silently and patiently they waited, sitting in all manner of queer places. Some of them perched on the backs of seats. A few clung like great big flies to the pillars. Others sat on window sills, and several of the tiniest hung from the rafters of the ceiling. As soon as the service was over, the clamor broke out anew. "Give to us the perjurer," screamed the demons. "He is not fit to live." With some difficulty, the rabbi stilled the tumult and said, "Listen unto me, ye demons and sprites of the land of Ergetz. This man has fallen into my hands, and I am responsible for him. Our king Asmodee must know of his arrival. We must not condemn a man unheard. Let us petition the king to grant him a fair trial." After some demur, the demons agreed with this proposal, and they trooped out of the synagogue in the same peculiar manner in which they came. Each was compelled to leave by the same door or window at which he entered. Bar Solomon was carried off to the palace of King Asmodee, preceded and followed by a noisy crowd of demons and fairies. There seemed to be millions of them, all clattering and pointing at him. They hobbled and hopped over the ground, jumped into the air, sprang from housetop to housetop, made sudden appearances from holes in the ground, and vanished through the solid walls. The palace was a vast building of white marble that seemed as delicate as lacework. It stood in a magnificent square where many beautiful fountains sprouted jets of crystal water. King Asmodee came forth on the balcony, and at his appearance all the demons and fairies became silent and went down on their knees. "What will ye with me?" he cried in a voice of thunder, and the rabbi approached and bowed before his majesty. "A mortal, a Jew, has fallen into my hands," he said, "and thy subjects crave for his blood. He is a perjurer, they say. Gracious Majesty, I would petition for a trial." "What manner of mortal is he?" asked Asmodee. Bar Solomon stepped forward. "Jump up here, so I may see thee," commanded the king. "Jump, jump!" cried the crowd. "I cannot," said Bar Solomon, as he looked up at the balcony 30 feet above the ground. "Try," said the rabbi. Bar Solomon did try, and found, the moment he lifted his feet from the ground, that he was standing on the balcony. "Neatly done," said the king. "I see thou art quick at learning." So my teachers always said, replied Bar Solomon. A proper answer, said the king. Thou art then a scholar? In my own land, replied Bar Solomon, men said I was great among the learned. So, said the king, and canst thou impart the wisdom of man and of the human world to others? I can, said Bar Solomon. We shall see, said the king. I have a son with a desire for such knowledge. If thou canst make him acquainted with thy store of learning, thy life shall be spared. The petition for trial is granted. The king waved his scepter, and 2 slaves seized Bar Solomon by the arms. He felt himself lifted from the balcony and carried swiftly through the air. Across the vast square the slaves flew him, and when over the largest of the fountains they loosened their hold. Bar Solomon thought he would fall into the fountain, but, to his amazement, he found himself standing on the roof of a building. By his side was the rabbi. Where are we? Asked Bar Solomon, feeling bewildered. We are at the court of justice, 100 miles from the palace, replied the rabbi. A door appeared before them. They stepped through and found themselves in a beautiful hall. 3 judges in red robes and purple wigs. Purple wigs? That's what it says. It says purple wigs. Purple wigs. Well, what do you know about that? Such a color combination, huh? Red robes and purple wigs? Okay, well, anyway. 3 judges in red robes and purple wigs were seated on a platform, and an immense crowd filled the galleries in the same queer way as in the synagogue. Bar Solomon was placed on a small platform in front of the judges. A tiny sprite, only about 6 inches high, stood on another small platform at his right hand and commenced to read from a scroll that seemed to have no end. He read the whole account of Bar Solomon's life. Not one little event was missing. The charge against Bar Solomon, the mortal, the sprite concluded, is that he violated a solemn oath sworn at his father's deathbed. Then the rabbi pleaded for him and declared that the oath was not binding because Bar Solomon's father had not informed him of his treasures abroad and could not therefore have been in his right senses. Further, he added, Bar Solomon was a scholar, and the king desired him to teach his wisdom to the crown prince. The chief justice rose and pronounced sentence. Bar Solomon, he said, rightly thou shouldest die for thy broken oath. It is a grievous sin. But there is doubt that thy father may not have been in his right mind. Therefore, thy life shall be spared. Bar Solomon expressed his thanks. When may I return home? He asked. Never, replied the chief justice. Bar Solomon left the court feeling very downhearted. He was safe now. The demons dared not molest him, but he longed to return to his home. How am I to get back to the palace? He asked the rabbi. Perhaps after I have imparted my learning to the crown prince, the king will allow me to return to my native land. That I cannot say. Come, fly with me, said the rabbi. Fly? Yes. See, thou hast wings. Bar Salom noticed that he was now wearing a garment just like the demons. When he spread his arms, he found he could fly, and he sailed swiftly through the air to the palace. With these wings, he thought, he would be able to fly home. Think not that, said the rabbi, who seemed to be able to read his thoughts. For thy wings are useless beyond this land. Bar Salmon found that it would be best for him to carry out his instructions for the present, and he set himself diligently to teach the crown prince. The prince was an apt pupil, and the two became great friends. King Asmodee was delighted and made Bar Solomon one of his favorites. One day the king said to him, I am about to leave the city for a while to undertake a campaign against a rebellious tribe of demons thousands of miles away. I must take the crown prince with me. I leave thee in charge of the palace. The king gave him a huge bunch of keys. These, he said, will admit into all but one of the 1,000 rooms in the palace. For that one there is no key, and thou must not enter it. Beware. So, for several days, Bar Salmon amused himself by examining the hundreds of rooms in the vast palace, until one day he came to the door for which he had no key. He forgot the king's warning and his promise to obey. Open this door for me, he said to his attendants, but they replied that they could not. You must, he said angrily, burst it open. We do not know how to burst open a door, they said. We are not mortals. If we were permitted to enter the room, we should just walk through the walls. That's a handy way to do it. Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? Bar Salmon could not do this, so he put his shoulder to the door, and it yielded quite easily. A strange sight met his gaze. A beautiful woman, the most beautiful he had ever seen, was seated on a throne of gold, surrounded by fairy attendants who vanished the moment he entered. Who art thou? Asked Bar Salmon in great astonishment. The daughter of the king, replied the princess, and thy future wife. Indeed. How do you know that? He asked. Thou hast broken thy promise to my father, the king, not to enter this room, she replied. Therefore thou must die unless. Tell me quickly, interrupted Bar Salmon, turning pale, how my life can be saved. Thou must ask my father for my hand, replied the princess. Only by becoming my husband canst thou be saved. But I have a wife and children in my native land, said Bar Salmon, sorely troubled. Thou hast now forfeited thy hope of return, said the princess slowly. Once more hast thou broken a promise. It seems to come easily to thee now. Bar Solomon had no wish to die, and he waited in fear and trembling for the king's return. Immediately he heard King Asmodee's approach. He hastened to meet him and flung himself on the ground at his majesty's feet. "O king," he cried, "I have seen thy daughter the princess, and I desire to make her my wife." Donald is going to love this. This is going to be one of our most famous. It's going to be, what do you call that? It's a cliffhanger. Hey, that's right. That's it. It's going to be one of our famous cliffhangers. So, we will find out next week if he marries the fairy princess or if King Asmodee kills him. Should be interesting. Okay. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern is the Rabbis Discuss. Whatever it is the rabbis are going to discuss at 8 p.m. Eastern. And on Wednesday is the Torah study, the Parsha of the week. And it's double Parsha this week. Okay, don't forget that. And we shall... then on Friday night is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv, the Shabbat service. And on Shabbat is Shacharit and Musaf. And then Monday, right back here to find out what happens to Bar Solomon and the fairy princess of Ergetz. Hope you will return to us then. Until then, everyone, oh, I should also say, have a wonderful Lag BaOmer. I think we go out and start a fire tonight. A bonfire. Yes, a bonfire. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, we don't want to just start a fire. That would be too, it could be a little dangerous. Anyway, have a wonderful Lag BaOmer, and we shall say, Laila Tov.